Dear participants, good morning to everyone connected here. I hope you're all safe and healthy. You're all going to travel with us for a month. Okay, one request. I request you all to change your name in Gmail account. You have submitted registration form in one name. You have submitted feedback form in another name. You are coming in another name in Google Classroom. So how to change your name in Gmail account means go to your Gmail account. Okay, click the option manage your Gmail account. Okay, in that option you can change your name. Kindly change your name. Okay, so type your name according to first you type your unique ID, then hyphen, then your name. So in the next class itself, rename your name and come to the correct name in the Google Classroom. It will be very useful for the teachers to correct your papers or MCQ and everything. Okay, upload your marks and everything. Malar Miss?
Yes, sister.
270 students connected here. Shall we start?
Yes, sister.
Yes, I think the resource person is ready. Okay,
yes,
Lakshmi,
sister.
shall we start?
Yes, sister, we can start now, sister. Every morning is a surprise, and every sunrise is a challenge, and each day is a gift. I welcome you all to the second day of the National Online Summer School on Biotechnology, organized by Marian Star Center, sponsored by Department of Biotechnology, New Delhi. Giving the first fruit of the day to the Lord is one of the most valuable ways to show our love to God. Let us invoke God's blessing through a prayer song.
There seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide. Hold me closely to his side. With love and strength for each new day, he will make a way. Make a way. Oh, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide. Hold me closely to his side. With love and strength for each new day, he will make a way. He will make a way. By a roadway in the wilderness, he'll lead me. Rivers in the desert will I see. Something new today. Oh, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me.
I feel happy to invite Dr. Jacinta Tamil Malar, Assistant Professor of Botany, to accord her cordial words of welcome.
Good morning to all. On behalf of the Marian Star Center, I feel greatly privileged to welcome you all to the second day of National Online Summer School on Biotechnology, sponsored by the Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology. I wholeheartedly welcome the today's resource person, Dr. T. Jabbar Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of Plant Sciences, School of Biological Sciences, Madurai Kamaraj University, Madurai, who delivers a lecture on recombinant DNA techniques, vectors for gene transfer. Dr. Jabbar Singh did his UG in the American College, Madurai, MSc Biology in the School of Biological Sciences, Madurai Kamaraj University, and awarded the doctoral degree in biotechnology from the School of Biotechnology, Madurai Kamaraj University, Madurai. He has a vast research experience, more than 20 years as Junior Research Fellow, Project Fellow, CSIR Junior Research Fellowship Fellow, CSIR Senior Research Fellow, Visiting Doctoral Fellow, and Postdoctoral Fellow. His research interests are the molecular mechanism involved in interaction between the virus and host plant cell, molecular characterization of viral proteins, characterization of viral mRNA, role of small RNA in pathogenesis of Agrobacterium and Leptospira, invasion mechanism of Leptospira. He has received funds for nearly 12 projects from various funding agencies like DST, OIS, CSIR, UGC, CERB, DBT, and RUSA. Under his guidance, 2 were awarded PhD and 1 is pursuing at present. He has published 31 research papers in the peer-reviewed national and international journals and 9 book chapters. He has organized many conferences and workshops. He has delivered around more than 50 guest lectures at different colleges and forums. He has received many awards. Few of them are Appreciation Award from Madurai Kamaraj University for his contribution to research and development, CERB Young Scientist Award, Postdoctoral Fellowship Award from the Department of Plant Sciences, Weizmann Institute of Sciences, Rehovot, Israel. He is a member in Aquater Society for Biological Sciences, International Working Group on Legume and Vegetable Viruses. With this short introduction, I, along with the participants connected here, welcome Dr. T. Jabbar Singh, Assistant Professor of Plant Sciences. Hearty welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this.
I accord a respectful welcome to our Secretary, Reverend Sister Flora Mary, our Principal, Dr. Sister Lucia Rose, our Deputy Principal, Dr. Sister Teres. I extend a cordial welcome to Reverend Dr. Sister Oroke Genesis Alphonse, Overall Coordinator and Member Secretary, DPT Star College Scheme. A cheerful welcome to all the members of Advisory Committee and Organizing Committee of this program. A warm welcome to college students from various parts of India who are interestingly registered in the summer school to acquire knowledge in biotechnology. Welcome, dear students. Once again, I welcome you all to today's section. Have a fruitful day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm words of welcome. Before moving into session, let us have photo session. So dear participants, kindly switch on your camera so that we can have photo session now. Dear participants, kindly switch on your camera. Thank you, dear participants. Now I request Dr. T. Jabbar Singh, Assistant Professor of Plant Sciences, Madurai Kamaraj University, Madurai, to share his profound knowledge with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you see the slide? The slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my voice is fine?
Yes, sir. It's very clear, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, very good morning to one and all here. First of all, I would like to convey my thanks to Secretary Ms. Flora Mary, Principal Dr. Lucia Rose, and the Vice Principal Dr. Shibana. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Arukya Janisha Alphonse, who are organizing this summer school on biotechnology. So, thank you for the opportunity given to deliver a talk on this particular forum, which are the summer school on biotechnology. I also extend my thanks to my friend Dr. Sripriya for providing this opportunity to deliver a talk in the summer school on the biotechnology. So the short thing I would like to get into my topic. So today for today's discussion, for today's presentation, I have selected this topic, vectors for gene transfer. I have given my mail ID down. If you have any further clarification, or if you need any other, if you are more interested, if you want to have any other clarification further, you can call. You can contact me through this mail ID also. So for today's topic is a vector. So the vector. First of all, I would like to define in a simple way. So the cloning vector is a DNA molecule into which the foreign DNA fragment or even complete genome can be ligated, by which you can make a recombinant DNA molecule later, which can be transferred into the particular organism. The recombinant the construct can be replicated. So in a short, so it is a vehicle, like how the vehicle can be useful to transfer the people and other things from one place to another place. Similarly, this cloning vector is a simple DNA molecule which can transfer the any gene from the test tube to the host organism. Okay, so you have two different DNA fragments that can be ligated and that can be transferred into any host organism. So that's why this cloning vector, it is called as molecular vehicle. If you see that all the cloning vectors, they are basically they are genetically engineered. Okay, so to satisfy all the requirements for the cloning purposes, so all the cloning vectors, they are actually genetically engineered. If you see that one, this is the one which is a basic unit needed for the molecular cloning also. So in yesterday, the inaugural talk which was delivered by the Professor Shahila, so she talked a lot of things about the application of the biotechnology. So for most of the product what we get from the biotechnology process, for that we need a genetic engineering. For the genetic engineering purposes, we need a basic thing called as vectors. So without the vectors, we cannot do anything. Like whatever the modification you want to do, or if you want to improve any particular strains, you have to engineer with some DNA. So that for that purposes, you need a cloning vectors. So that's why it is a very, very important with respect to the genetic engineering also. So there are several type of cloning vectors are available. This is what we are going to. This is what I'm going to discuss in a few minutes. So if you see that one, depending upon the size and then type of the DNA to be cloned, the vectors also get varied. If you want to clone a small fragment, you can opt the plasmid. If you are going for any like a genomic library, what we call as to have a complete genetic information about any particular organism, we have to go for the higher vectors, which can accommodate the larger size of the DNA fragment also. So basically there are 4 type of vectors are the vectors are basically classified into 4 types. The first one is a plasmid, and then the next vectors is basically derived from the virus, the phage, the bacteriophage, and then the cosmids, and finally the artificial chromosomes, which includes the phage artificial chromosomes, bacterial artificial chromosomes, and then yeast artificial chromosomes. So I'm going to discuss all these particular vectors in a nutshell, in a very short form. So I don't take much time. If you have any clarification, if you have any doubt, you can stop at any point at any junction. So just we can have like a discussion also. I don't mind to have something like so. So you can, if you have any doubt, you can stop me at any point also. Can you see the next slide? Hello.
Yes, sir. We are seeing it, sir.
You're seeing it, no? Okay, fine. Sometimes in my system, it's a problem. Whenever I go for any online class, sometimes if I move the second slide, it won't be visible. It's fine. Okay. So first, I'm going to start with the plasmids. So you all know what is plasmid. So to understand more about it, so the down the picture it is given there. So the bacteria has a 2 type of genetic material. One is called as, we call as a replicon. Okay, so one is a chromosomal DNA, and the other one is a plasmid. Okay, so if you see compare the size between this bacterial DNA, the chromosomal DNA, and the plasmid, it is something like between the Himalaya mountain, and then there is a hill in our place, Nagamalik. So there is a huge size difference. So the bacterial DNA is the size of the bacterial DNA. If you see that one, it is 50 micrometer to the 350 micrometer. But when you take the plasmid, it can be between 1 kb to 1000 kb, not more than that. So now we can understand the size difference between the chromosomal DNA and the plasmid DNA. Okay. So if you see that one, the plasmid DNA is basically the small double-stranded DNA molecule, and they are actually since it is a circular, that means it's a covalently closed one. And if you see that one, it has a antibiotic resistant gene also. So that is the main purpose of the plasmid. So it will have some unique gene by which it can grow. The bacteria can grow in a harsh environment condition also. Okay. So if you see the plasmid also belongs to the mobilesomes. So the mobilesome is a term is used to the organ which can transfer from the one organism to another organism. Apart from the plasmid, this transposon, the prophage, can also be considered as a mobilesomes. Okay, so due to this, the plasmid, the scientists they have modified the plasmid such a way that to carry the genetic material to the any organisms also. Okay, so to make the plasmid as a vector, as a vector, it needs few characters also. So to have the plasmid, as I told you, is the plasmid, all the vectors that basically the genetically engineered one. So this plasmid also is basically, it is assemble of the DNA fragments from the different plasmids and from the different source also. If you see that one, the plasmid, the picture you can see that one. So all the plasmids vectors, they have the 3 important things. One is the origin of the replication. So the ultimate purpose of the cloning is to have not only to clone the particular gene, to have a more copy also. So for that, the particular plasmid needs to be replicated. So this origin of the replication is a fragment of the DNA molecule in which from which the replication starts. So that means the replicase, the enzyme which will bind into this particular region, and that will start the DNA replication, more specifically the plasmid DNA replications. So that means that all the plasmids vectors, they have the basic thing called as origin of the replication. Okay, so coming to the next one, to clone any gene into this particular vector, it is basically done by inserting into the restriction sites. So that is basically present in the particular plasmid vectors also. So most of the vectors, they have a multiple restriction sites. So we call this a polylinker. As a biotechnologist, we usually call that as a polylinker size. So apart from the original replication, the second thing the plasmid needs to be processed is the polylinker sites or the multiple restriction sites, in which we can insert any DNA also. And the third important thing is called as marker, that we call as a selectable marker. So basically, they are the drug resistant genes. So that means the particular produce some enzymes, so that will helpful to grow in the antibiotic containing medium. So by which we can avoid the contamination. So the bacteria is everywhere. So while we assume that we are culturing our recombinant, but ultimately it will some other bacteria can also come into the medium. So that can also grow along with our clone also. So to get rid of it, so always to make sure that whatever the recombinant we're growing, so to make sure that only we are growing the recombinant, always the vector needs to be possess the antibiotic resistant gene also. So these are the three important things supposed to have this plasmid vectors, but some of the vectors can also have the additional reporter gene also. So the reporter gene is to identify based on some phenotypic expression. For example, in the down, I have given like you can see the colonies in the LP plate, which has both like blue and then white. Okay, so the blue-white is basically due to the beta-galactosidase gene. This is basically from the E. coli. So you all would have studied the lac operon. So one of the gene which is a beta-galactosidase. So when you add the substrate called as XGAL, so it can convert the substrate into a colorful product. So that gives the blue color. Okay, so generally, if there is so what happened that this particular lac is a gene which has been cloned in the multiple restriction site. So when you clone any gene into that particular thing, so the lac gene will be disrupted. So due to that, the recombinant the plasmid cannot give the blue color. So that's what. So if the recombinant plasmid, if there is a white colony formation happened there, so that means there is some insertion of the whatever the fragment we added, so that inserted into the multiple cloning site, so that disturb the lac gene. So due to that, it cannot produce a blue color when there is a addition of XGAL in a LB medium also. So by which we can identify the recombinant also. So as I told you, this original replication is to replicate. That means to produce a multiple copy, and then the cloning site to clone any particular gene, and then the selectable marker gene to avoid the contamination, and the reporter gene to identify the recombinant itself. Okay, so these are the four qualities, the four important things needs to be present in any plasmid vector. Okay, so if you see that one, why it is highly, like if you see the molecular biology, every molecular biology lab, they do this cloning in a plasmid vectors. So first of all, it is very easy to grow. Like if you inoculate the thing, next day you can come and raise it, and you can get the overgrown culture, from which the plasmid purification is very, very easy. And whatever the medium or whatever the thing you are spending, it's not that much expensive also. That's why it is the plasmid size is small and also very easy to handle. That means easily can grow. And also from the E. coli, from the any bacteria, we can purify the plasmid also. And also, as I discussed in the previous slide, the selection strategy is also straightforward. So you just after you do the transformation, you plate it on the antibiotic containing medium. If it has a beta-galactosidase gene, you can plate along with the XGAL also, by which you can easily screen the recombinant also. And if you see that one, by using this plasmid vector, you can clone up to maximum 10 kb, not more than that. So, but this is a disadvantageous in the sense like you cannot clone more than the 10 kb fragment. So if you are going for any library preparation, like a genomic library preparation, for that purpose, the plasmid vector is not suitable at all. So you have to find the other vectors, so which I'll be dealing in a few minutes. Okay, to give few example about the plasmids, like a PB. First one I will start with the PBR32. So this is actually this particular plasmid. They're made by the two scientists, Bolivar Rodriguez. So that's what the PBR, the P stands for the plasmid, B stands for the Bolivar, and then R stands for the Rodriguez. The number like a 322. So like while they're making the plasmid, so they have made before they derive this particular plasmid. Before that, they have made nearly something like a 320. After that, only they got this. Like this is like we call it as a clone number or something. Okay. So if you see the size of it, it is a 4.3 kb. Initially, it was very useful. This particular vector was very useful for so many purposes. And if you see that one, it has a two antibiotic resistant gene marker, ampicillin and then tetracycline. And there is a few restriction sites, so through which you can insert the gene into this particular vector. So when you are inserting any gene into the tetracycline or ampicillin, then the recombinant cannot grow in the particular medium also. If you are inserting the gene into the ampicillin marker gene, so what happens that when you are growing into the ampicillin containing medium, the recombinant cannot grow. Okay, so by which you can identify the recombinant also. And basically there are some plasmids, depending upon the origin of replication, they can produce as a high copy number, or in some cases it produces a low copy number also. But it has an origin of replication such a way that it will produce the more number of the copy number in a particular E. coli cells. That's why it is called as high copy number also. And the next plasmid, it is a PUC. The U stands for the University, C stands for the California. The University of California, from the University of California, this particular plasmids they are made. So that's why it is called as PUC. And we have a series till PUC 19. Okay, so that many series also present. And if you see that one, this particular, basically it is also derived from the PBR322 only. But here it doesn't have the kanamycin resistant seed, and due to that the size also reduced like a 2.7 kb only. And if when you compare with the PBR322, this PUC 18 and or 19, they have two important other thing. One is a lac acid. As I told you, there is a lac acid which is responsible for producing the blue color. So that has been cloned in the multiple cloning site. Okay, and if you see that one number of restriction sites, when you compare with the PBR322, the PUC 18 has many restriction sites. So the cloning in a PUC 18, since it has a multiple cloning, multiple restriction sites, so it will be very easy to clone in a PUC 18 at many sites than when you compare with the PBR32 also. Okay, so I want to tell you one more important vectors. So this is called as PGMT EC vector. Okay, so it is a commercially it's available vector. So when they provide as a linear vector. Okay, the linear vector. What is unique about this particular vector? So most of the labs they do the PCR with the Taq enzyme, Taq polymerase enzyme. So what happened that the Taq the polymerase it used to produce the A overhangs with the addition of one or adenine nucleotide at the end of either end of the PCR product. Okay, so taking that as a thing, so the company they developed the vector which has a T overhang. In the picture, in the down picture, you can maybe if the cursor is visible, you can see it down wherever I'm moving the cursor, it has a T overhang. Okay, so when you compare with these two, cloning these two vectors, if it has a due to the T overhangs and the PCR product which has a A overhangs, the cloning is the ligation is very easier than the cloning in any other vectors also. Okay, so that's what this the company. They made this vector with a T overhangs. This will be very highly useful to clone the Taq polymerase amplified fragment also. I can tell you many other important things about this thing, about this vector also. For example, it has a sp6t7. From this, you can produce as a single standard RNA also due to the sp6t7 thing. Basically, there are the viral promoters from which you can produce a single strand RNA also. And if you see that there are multiple enzyme sites also present. Okay, so you just have it in the mind. So this PGMD EC vector, it is useful to clone the tag polymerase amplified PCR product. Okay. Okay, so so now now we want to know how exactly the cloning can be done by using the plasmid vector. So this particular slide will summarize the methodology regarding the cloning of any gene in a plasmid vector. So in the left side, it is a plasmid is given. So here there is in E-carbon site is present. So you digest this particular plasmid with the E-carbon site, so that will produce as a sticky end. So you know there are two type of ends can be produced by the two different enzymes, sticky ends and then blunt end. Okay, so the sticky ends, so the E-carbon will produce the sticky ends, the plasmid, and similarly any DNA can be released with the E-carbon site, and then these things can be ligated into the plasmid vector by using the T4 DNA ligase enzyme. So by which you will get the recombinant plasmid. So that you can try anyway in the coming session you will hear more about how to do the transformation, how to screen that everything. So I'm briefly telling you. So after you ligate this, after you take the ligated product, the recombinant plasmid, you transfer into the E. coli cell, which is basically a competent cell. So the competence, what I mean is the ability to take up any foreign DNA. So that has to be introduced. That has to be induced in any E. coli cell to accept any foreign DNA. So that is by the simple thing by treating with the calcium chloride, that will become the competent cells. So you add the plasmid into that will accept the DNA getting entered into the E. coli cell itself. Then you incubate for some time to produce the antibiotic marker genes. And then finally you select on that particular antibiotic. And if it has a blue-white selection, based on that, you can identify the recombinant in the plasmid itself. Then you can extract the plasmid in a simple procedure, and then you can digest with the E-carbon to see whether the size of the fragment is released, whatever you ligated with the particular vector also. Okay, so this is how the plasmid, the cloning in a plasmid vector can be done. Now I'm going to start with another type of vector, which is basically derived from the bacteriophage. You all know what is bacteria. From the name itself, you can identify the phage is a virus. So the virus infects the bacteria also. So that those phages, it is called as bacteriophage. Okay. Once the bacteriophage infect, there are two, depending upon the phages, the two processes can happen. One is two life cycle. One is a lytic, and the other one is a lysogenic. So in the case of the lytic, what happened that this particular phage, it will infect the bacteria cell, and there it will replicate it, and then after it assemble in the E. coli cell itself, and then finally it will lyse the cell. So for example, the T4 is a typical phage which undergoes a lytic life cycle. There is another thing called as lysogeny. So in the case of the lysogeny, what happened that the DNA, whatever got into the E. coli cell, it will integrate it into the chromosomal DNA. So along with the chromosomal DNA division, this integrated phage DNA also will divide. So this type of integration and the phage DNA integration onto the chromosomal DNA, that is called as prophage. Okay, the prophage is a particular phage. Both they have both lytic and lysogenic. Depending upon the E. coli condition, it will the lysogenic can once again they revert back into the lytic, and then it can lyse the cell, and then it can come out from the E. coli cell also. So you have to understand why I'm explaining. So in the coming slides, I'm going to talk about how the vectors they have made from this P1 and the lambda phage also. And there is another phage. It's a M13 phage. It is an unusual phage. It doesn't have the life cycle. It is something that's a very intimate between the lytic and lysozymic. In the sense, it doesn't integrate to the chromosomal DNA. At the same time, it will multiply within the cytoplasm, and then it will then assemble. It will assemble as a phage particle, and then it will release from the E. coli cell, the infected E. coli cell, without lysing the bacteria itself. Okay, so this is what like the M13 is an unusual phage. So this is what the picture I given the pictures for all the phages. If you see that the T4, the first one, the second one is a lambda phage. They are very similar, like it has a head, tail, and the tail fibers. But the M13 phage, it is a filamentous phage. It is a filamentous phage. Okay. Now going into the vector construction from the phage, there are basically the two vectors, the phage vectors derived from the two different phages. The first one from the lambda phage, the second from the M13 phage. So this this lambda phage, it is useful to produce as a double-stranded DNA bacteriophage vector, and the M13 vectors, the M13 phage, it is very useful to produce as the single-stranded M13 vectors. Okay, so coming back into the lambda bacteriophage, as I told you, it has a two life cycle, lytic and the lysogenic. So it will bind in the phage. When it binds into the E. coli host cell, it will inject only the linear double-stranded DNA. So the lambda bacteriophage, it has a linear double-stranded DNA. So after it inject into the E. coli cells, it will ligate. It will become the circular molecule. That is basically due to the cause site. I will tell you in the next slide. So depending upon the life cycle, what happens there, if it's a lysogenic, it will through the attachment site which is present on the phage DNA, and then in the bacterial chromosomal DNA. So there the integration happen. Then it becomes the lysogen, that's prophage. In some cases, if you're getting entered into the lytic cycle, what happens that it first will go the theta mode of replication and finally rolling circle amplification, and it will have a multiple copy of the DNA that will produce a concatenous. And finally, what happened that during this process, the protein also produced for the head and the tail, and then the encapsulation happen, and finally it will lyse the cell and release from the bacterial cell also. Okay, so this is what like so this is the structure of the bacterial lambda phage, and if you see that one, this is the genome of the bacterial lambda phage. If you see the size of the DNA, it is exactly 48.5 kb size. If you see the length of the DNA, it is a 48.5 kb size. On either end of the this linear double-stranded DNA, it has a 12 base of that is a single stranded 12 with a single strand with the 12 bases on either side of it. If you see that one, they are complementary. So what happened that so the 12 bases they named as a, since it is a sticky end, they name it as a cause site. It's a cause site. So what happened that once after the lambda DNA injected into the E. coli cells, due to this cause sites on either end of the lambda DNA, they got ligated and they become the circle molecule. They become the circle shape also. That means they are covalently closed and become the circular shape. Okay, and if you see that one, so from the left end, it has a gene which code for the head and the tail proteins, and the right side it code for the protein they needed for the lytic cycle. In between the regions are present, they are needed for the they exactly needed for the lysogenic life cycle. That means they have some genes which are responsible for the making the recombination, maybe that is responsible for integrating to the chromosomal DNA, and also it is needed for the immunity. That means if this particular phage is present in the E. coli cells, any other phage cannot infect the particular E. coli cells. Okay, so if you see that one, this region, whatever we call as a central region, We call it central region. It includes the recombinant, the genes responsible for recombination and the immunity. They are non-essential with respect to the vector making. So this is what I will tell you clearly in the next slide also. So if you see that one, the lambda phage as such, the lambda phage DNA as such, we cannot use it for the vector making. Why? There are for two reasons. One is that due to the size constraint, the head protein can accommodate only 52 kb DNA, not more than that. Already, if you see the lambda phage DNA, on this size of the lambda phage, nearly 49.5 kb only. So extra, you can clone only the 3 kb. Okay, so as such, it cannot be used for the lambda phage vector. And other thing, if you see that one, if you see the due to the larger size, the whatever the restricted sites present in a lambda phage DNA, they are multiple. There are many sites are present. For example, the ECOR1, nearly 6 sites are present. So due to this, also it cannot be used for the vector synthesis. So that's why to rectify this, the people they have done some modification by doing the site-directed mutagenesis. They removed all the ECOR1 site except the ECOR1 site which is present and one particular gene that comes at the center region, which is basically present in the C1, the repressor coding region. Okay, the other one here, like as I told you, the left side is the code for the head tail, and the middle region responsible for the recombination and then immunity, and then the right side is responsible for the ligation. If you see that one, the middle region, which is present between the 20 kb and then 35 kb, they are not needed if you are going to if you are going to convert this particular lambda phage DNA for the vector. Okay, so by which, if you are removing this region, you can clone any foreign DNA with that size of it. So additionally we are getting something like a 50 kb. So if you are removing this particular thing, then we can clone the 15 kb size of the foreign DNA also. So by doing this modification, they made a lambda phage DNA as a cloning vector also. Okay, so basically there are two types of phage vectors are available. One is an insertion vector, the other one is a replaceable vector. In the case of the insertion vectors, after doing the site-directed mutagenesis, they kept only the ECOR1 site at the C1 region. So this is the region which is responsible for the lysogenic stage. So what happened that, so here they modified, and the ECOR1 site, you can clone it, but here you can clone maximum 8 kb, not more than that. So there are basically two types of vectors they have made from this particular the insertion vectors. One is a lambda GT10. Here, this is what so basically it is a 40 kb size of it, and it has a ECOR1 site in the C1 region, so in which you can insert the foreign DNA up to 8 kb, not more than that. And later they formed another vector from the lambda phage DNA, that is lambda ZAP11 vector. So here they have introduced the LAC-Z region. So they made some deletion, and then they introduced the LAC-Z, the beta galactosidase gene is here introduced here itself, and then by which due to that it can be nearly something like a 10 kb of any DNA can be inserted into the lambda ZAP11 vector also. Okay, and coming to the next type of vector, that is called as replacement or substitute vectors. Here, what happened that here they made they use the same lambda phage, but what happened that here they created that there is a 2 ECOR1 site which is present on the either end of the replaceable region. Okay, the either end of the replaceable region. So what they have done that. So here that region they call as a stuffer fragment. So the stuffer fragment, which is responsible, the DNA, the genes which are present in the stuffer fragment, they're responsible for the lysogenic life cycle. So what they have done, they have they have made such a way that so when you want to clone it, if you want to clone this any gene at this particular vector, you have to treat the vector with the ECOR1, and then you have to get the fragment, the insert with the ECOR1 digested one. And what happened that when you while doing the ligation, the stuffer fragment will be come out, and then the DNA fragment which wants to be cloned into the lambda phage vector will be cloned here. Okay, so if you compare with that insertion vector and then replacement vector, here you can clone nearly 20 kb size of the DNA. When you compare with the insertion vector, there you can clone only 8 kb. Okay, and this lambda EMBL4 is a newly the latest evolved vector, the replacement vector here. What happened that it has a few two more restriction sites on either side of the central stuffer sequence also. Here like ECOR1, BAMH1 and then SAL1 on left side and right side the same enzymes are present. So here by treating with these two enzymes on either side, you can clone the fragment at this particular vector. So nearly something like a 20 kb size of the fragment can be cloned. So it also additional advantages in screening the recombinant also. There is a phenotype called as sensitive PS interference. What is that? The PS stands for the P2 Faj. So here, the already E. coli has the P2 Faj as a lysogen, as a prophage. Any other thing cannot be infected. For example, if the lambda Faj has this particular stuffer fragment, that means non-recombinant without having any insert, this cannot infect this E. coli, which has the sensitive PS interference. That means it has the P Faj. Okay, the P2 Faj, if it doesn't present there, that means if there is a P2 Faj is present inside the E. coli, when you are infecting without any recombinant, that particular vector, that particular Faj cannot infect. But during the cloning, the central stuffer sequence will be gone off, and we are putting the any DNA fragment, so that can grow in this particular phenotypic E. coli, by which you can easily confirm the recombinant of the lambda recombinant also. So the screening is very easy with respect to the having the recombinant without the central stuffer sequence also. Okay, so this is the things so this is how you have to do the cloning in the case of with the lambda vectors. So what you have to do, so you have to make the recombinant. So that has a so you consider this is a recombinant. So what happened that has a on either end it has a cos site. Okay, so you have the insert which is present between the cos site. So that you have to mix it with the Faj head protein and then tail protein. So this so what happened that along with the protein called as A protein, along with the protein called the A protein. So the A protein is the one which recognizes the cos site, and that helpful to get the linear double-stranded DNA with which is basically a recombinant into the head protein. And then once the DNA is packed into the head protein, then finally the tail protein also will attach into the head protein, which has a DNA also. So this is called as in vitro packaging. So for the in vitro packaging, you need a head protein, tail protein, along with the recombinant Faj DNA, and also with the A protein. So the A protein one which recognize the cos site, and that pack the DNA into the head protein, and finally the tail protein will be attached, and then that will be that when you infect this into the E. coli, there it will replicate and then it will lyse a cell. That means it will produce a flux. Based on that, you can confirm the recombinant phage also. So this is how we have to do the cloning in a lambda with a lambda vector also. Okay, coming to the another vectors, as I told you, this is M13 vectors, this is the one which produces the single-stranded DNA. Okay, so this is the structure of it. As I told you, it is a filamentous structure. It has several proteins covered the viral single-stranded DNA. On left side, on the head side, it has 3 protein. On the tail side, it has another 2 protein. Another tail end is also another 2 protein. If you see as I told you, it doesn't lyse the cell. So what happened that the M13 infected E. coli, it grows very slowly. It grows very slow. And what are the plaques it produces? They are turbid. So in the down, you can see the picture. So when you compare with the lambda phage infected thing, This one, it produces the plaque. The plaques are very turbid, by which you can identify the E. coli which has been infected with the which is being infected with the M13 also. If you see the thing, this is the structure. If you see the dimension, it has a 900 nanometer length and the 9 nanometer diameter. It has a single stranded DNA with a size of 6.4 kb, which has a size of 6.4 kb. The 6.4 kb can code 11 protein. So it is basically, it has 11 protein, and then from the 6.4 kb, it code for the 11 protein. So the 11 protein, they're involved in like capsid protein, and for some they involve replication and some other functions also. Okay, coming to the life cycle. So I will tell you briefly about the life cycle here. So what happened that, as I told you, it is a single stranded DNA molecule. So when it inject into the E. coli, the DNA comes in and it forms the basically what of the single strand DNA that is has a positive sense. Okay, the plus strand DNA. So that will go for the replication, and then it will produce as the minus strand also. So there are now it has a 2 strand. So it is called as a replicative form. So what happened that these replicative forms will be continued when there is another when the viral protein, the P2, and the P2, it will nick the replicative form. And what happened due to that, the positive strand comes out, and the other protein called as P5, that will started covering the single strand DNA, and then it will once this happen, then it is ready to go out from the E. coli itself. That means it can come out from the E. coli cells. During this process, all the capsid proteins will be assembled, and then it will come out of the E. coli cell without lyse the E. coli cell also. So this is the life cycle of it. So how this particular M13 thing, they are changed for the as a vectors. So that's what I'm going to discuss here. So okay, so if you see that one, as I told you, so this is a genome organization. That means this is how the genome organization of the M13 viral DNA is present. So if you see that one, so there is a region called as intergenic region, which is present. The region is present between the gene 4 and then gene 2. So in the intergenic region, there is a original replication is present. And see, if you see that one, you cannot, like a lambda DNA, you can remove the stuffer sequence that is responsible for the lysosome. Here you cannot delete any such things. That means whatever the genes there, they are needed for the replication and then packaging. So what happened that you can do only modification of the intergenic region. So the intergenic basically is a 500 base pair. So that too, if you should not disturb the original replication also. So by which they have created that. So by modifying this region, they have converted this M13 POG DNA as a vector. In the first series, that is called as M13P1. So what happened that in the picture you can clearly see that one. So here this particular series, they introduce a LAC-Z gene. So that means here you can screen by having the LAC gene expression, by adding the XGAL, you can clearly know that is a recombinant. In the next series, like M13M2, what happened that they have introduced by doing the site-direct immunogenesis, they introduced the ECOR1. So in which you can insert the gene, insert any fragment which has been released with the ECOR1 enzymes also. Okay, so this is what the third, like the third thing, like M13 MP7. What happened that they have introduced a few more restriction site also. That means they introduce a polylinker site. So due to that, you can clone many number of the genes since it has a many restriction sites also. So by which they convert this M13 into a suitable vector to clone any genes also. So if you see that one, this M13, what is the need of single strand DNA? Single strand DNA is needed for several purposes. For example, for the di-deoxy sequencing method, we need a single strand DNA, and also for making the site-direct immunogenesis. In some cases, you have to make the probe from the specific strand of the DNA also. So for those regions, we need a single standard. So for that reason, the M13 vectors are highly useful. Okay, this is one point. The another point is that it has since it is a filamentous particle, that means like depending upon the DNA length of the DNA, the packaging is also varied. The lambda, it is restricted. You cannot clone beyond the 52. You cannot extend beyond the 52 kb size of it. But in the case of the M13, you can extend any you can extend the length of the DNA so that the packing, it won't be any problem at all. So for these two reasons, this M13 is highly advantageous than any other viral vector also. Okay. So now going into the third vector, that is called as cosmate. From the word itself, you can easily assume the meaning that. So this particular thing has a cos site from the lambda DNA, and then meets the stand for the plasmid. So this particular vector, which is basically the plasmid, with the inclusion of the cos site from the lambda DNA. If you see that this particular cosmate, it can accommodate the size. It can accommodate the size of 37 to 15 kb size of the DNA. When you compare with the lambda DNA, still it can accommodate more size of the DNA than the lambda DNA based vector also. So here, like since it has a cosette, cosette is responsible for the packaging. So after you here, this is what so this is a vector, the cosmate vector. Approximately it is a 5 kb size. So here you have the cos site and then polylinker site. This is a restriction site in which you can clone it. It has an orthogonal replication for the E. coli, and also it has a antibiotic marker gene as an ampicillin. So here you digest the vector, the cosmic vector, with the particular enzyme, with the particular restriction enzyme. Similarly, you have to cut the DNA to be cloned with the same enzymes. So then you mix these two vectors, and then the fragments from the to be cloned, and then make the ligation, and then you have to do the in vitro packaging. That means you have to add the lambda phage head protein, tail protein, and due to the cos site in the presence of the A protein, the packaging happened, and then you have to make the infection on the E. coli. So within the E. coli, what happens due to the orthogonal replication of the E. coli, it will replicate. So since it has the ampicillin, so by selecting the ampicillin plate, you can screen the recombinants of the cosmates also. Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can ask me. So this is what when you compare with the lambda DNA, the handling is very easy, and it can accommodate nearly for the 30 kb size of the DNA also. Okay, going to the another thing, the next thing is called as artificial chromosomes. So as I told you, the artificial chromosomes, under the artificial chromosome, there are 3 different type of vectors are present. One is a PAC, this is a phage P1 based artificial chromosome. The next one is a bacterial artificial chromosome, and finally the yeast artificial chromosome. So all these things are useful to clone the still larger size of the DNA from nearly something like from 100 to 1000 kb size of the DNA. So first I will explain about the PAC. So this PAC is basically right from the phage P1. If you see the structure, it is very similar to the lambda phage. It has a head, tail, and then tail fiber also. And it has a double stranded linear DNA molecule with the size of the 93 kb. But if you see, this is the original size of it. But after the infection, it will increase the size up to 110 kb. 110 kb size of it. So that means after infection to the E. coli cells, it will take some DNA component from the E. coli chromosomal DNA also. Okay. So here, this is how, as I told you, it has a linear DNA molecule. On either end, it has a sequence called as terminally reductant sequence. Okay, so they are very similar. So what happened that the E. coli, which recognize this 2 sequence, and then induce a recombination process. So due to that, this particular P1 phage DNA, which is basically linear molecule, that will be converted into the circular molecule also. Okay, so due to the host protein, recombinase protein. So that makes the linear double-stranded Faj DNA into the circular molecule also. Okay. So this is what so this P1 Faj like very similar to the lambda Faj. It can go like two different phases, lytic and lysogenic. Anyway, that's not important with respect to the vector making. So here what happened that, so as in the lambda DNA, you found the cause site that is responsible for the circulation. In the Faj DNA, the cause site is responsible for the packing the DNA into not only for circulation, packing into the Faj head protein also. Here there is another type of sequence which is present in the Faj P1 DNA that is called as pack site. Okay, that's P stands for the package. It's a pack, the packing. So what happened that it has a, even though it is formed the concurrent back, but still so this the equally this lambda protein, the lambda Faj, the P1 Faj, it goes for the protein called as Cre protein. So this protein which recognize the pack site, and due to that it will produces the the single double strand linear molecule. So that will be packed into the head protein of the P1 Faj. Okay, so the pack site is responsible for packing the P1 Faj DNA into the head protein, and then the tail protein will be added into it, and finally the Faj as a particle assemble, and then it go for the and then it will lyse the cell also. So what are the packaging it happen here? That the packaging here it is called as head full packaging. That means this particular P1 Faj, it will pack all the DNA. That means it doesn't leave any space which is present in the Faj head protein also. That's why it is called as head full packaging. Okay. So due to that, as I told you, it is only basically it is a approximately 90 kb size. But due to this head full packaging, it can accommodate some more DNA also, around something like 15 kb of DNA extra into the head protein of the Faj1 DNA also. This will be very useful for producing the lambda vector, like the P1 Faj vector also. So this is what what happened that, so in a phage Faj, like a phage P1 vector system, it has a two arm. The one arm on the left side, the short arm, which has the pack and the log piece side. The pack, the pack function of the pack one. What is the function of the log piece side? This log piece side, which is the Cre, as I told you, the Cre protein, the Cre recombination one, that is recognize this one. That is the one which recognize this particular site. So what happened that is responsible for circularizing this Faj1 DNA itself. Okay, so basically the Faj1 is a linear molecule, but this Cre protein, the Cre recombinase enzyme, so that recognize this particular site, and that makes the circulation of this P1 Faj DNA also. So here what happened that, as I told you, there are two arms will be the short arm. It has a pack and the log piece site, and then long arm which has a region from the plasmid, and then it has another log piece site also, and then you have the stuffer sequence. So what happened that you have to do the in vitro, you have to do the ligation in vitro. That means you have to take these two arms, and then you have to add the insert DNA, and then you go for the ligation. So at the end of the ligation, you will have the molecule like this, packed with the log in the left, the short arm at the left side, and the insert DNA, and then right arm with all this component in the right side. So now what happened that you have to do the in vitro packaging. So you take this DNA, and then you add into the P1, like you have to add the P1 head protein, tail protein, and then you have to,
Excuse me, sir. Your voice is breaking, sir.
actually, I completed this plasmid vectors, and then I talk about this lambda vectors, and then lambda Fudge vectors, and then M32 vectors, and then I talk about the cosmic vectors, and finally I talk about this P1 Fudge artificial, the artificial chromosome based on the P1 Fudge. That's a pack vector. So thing is that, like as I told you, still I have to cover 2 more vectors, which is called as bacterial artificial chromosomes, and then other one is yeast artificial chromosomes. So the size of the fragments in case of the bacterial artificial chromosomes can be increased up to 300 kb. And coming to this YARK vector, we can clone the fragment till 1000 to 1400 kb. So here, like in the first, I'll complete this YARK vector. So the YARK vector is basically derived from the PBI32 plasmid only. So that has 2 original replication, one for the yeast, another for the bacteria, and then it also has 2 marker, like antibiotic sensor marker for the bacteria, and then the uracil, this auxotroph marker for the yeast thing, and it also has 2 cloning sites. Generally, 2 restriction sites will be there. So when you cut the vector, it will produce a 2 fragment. Then you have to add the insert. That also should be released with that particular, depending upon what enzyme you used it. So that then you have to ligation, you have to transfer it directly into the yeast cell. So this is what about the YARK vector. And then regarding this bacterial artificial chromosomes, so that is basically it has a 2 it has a original replication for the bacteria. It has a chlorophynical marker gene. It has a original replication for this one also. And by using this, it also has in some vectors, it also has a LAC-Z gene also. So in the LAC-Z gene, there is a polylinker site. So when you clone it, that will be disrupted. You won't get any blue color. But one advantage of the back vector is that you not to go for any in vitro packaging. So here you directly take the vector, you digest with a particular enzyme, and then you add the insert. By doing the electroporation, you can transfer directly into the bacteria cell. That's all. So then you can, with the antibiotic selection, you can screen the particular recombinant by which you can confirm the particular recombinant also. So this is what, sorry, I couldn't show the slides. So sorry for that one. So here I'll stop here. If you have any doubt, you can ask.
Thank you, sir, for enriching us. Dear participants, now the session is open for questions. You can post your questions in the chat box so that sir can clarify your questions. Participants, if you have any doubts, if you have any queries to be answered, you just post the questions in the chat box. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the
Thank you so much, sir. Gratitude is a powerful catalyst for happiness. Now I invite Dr. Maria Sumati, Assistant Professor of Botany, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning to everyone connected here. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. It's my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks of the second day of National Online Summer School on Biotechnology for Science students. First of all, I thank God Almighty for the blessing and grace to complete today's program successfully. I would like to thank our resource person, Dr. J. Jabasingh, Assistant Professor of Plant Sciences, Madurai Kamarajar University, Madurai, for making excellent presentation and making today's session interesting and meaningful. We are really enlightened with your knowledge on recombinant DNA technology, particularly in vectors for gene transfer. Thank you so much, sir. I express my sincere gratitude to our Secretary, Reverend Sister Flora Mary, and our Principal, Dr. Reverend Sister A.S.J. Lucia Rose, for their enthusiastic support. And I also thank our Deputy Vice Principal, Dr. Reverend Sister Kulandai Teres, for her encouragement. I would like to thank overall STAR coordinator, Dr. Reverend Sister Arokya Genesius Alphonse, who is the major source in organizing this program. And I also thank Dr. Reverend Sister Jessie Fernando for her constant support. My heartfelt thanks to faculties and students from our college and other college for active participation. I also thank technical team and organizing committee of the National Online Summer School on Biotechnology. I sincerely thank the HODs of various departments and staff members of our college. Once again, I thank you to all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, kindly note, attendance from feedback link is posted in the chat box already. Kindly fill it carefully for recording your attendance. Thank you all. Thank you all for your participation. Have a nice day.
Dear participants, the quiz will be posted by 6 o'clock. Okay, so the quiz will be posted by 6 o'clock, and by 7 to 8, we can have an interactive session with the resource person through the WhatsApp. So please keep that in mind. Your quiz will be posted by 6 o'clock, and 7 to 8, you can have the interactive session with the resource person through WhatsApp chat.